Hello everyone, I'm cruising along the Nairobi Western Bypass and I'm approaching the small town of Wangige, which is the capital of Kabete Constituency. And today I just want to show you around the small but beautiful town, which has one of the biggest food markets in the country. In fact, the town has a dedicated eggs market, which is the biggest in East and Central Africa, and probably the only one. I've never seen any open air market selling eggs. I'll be showing you that later in the video. I will also be visiting another neighboring town, which is home to the first African Attorney General in Kenya, a man who, despite being black, felt more of a European. I'll be showing you his estate later in the video. But before doing that, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to our YouTube channel, Village to Town TV, a channel that is dedicated to continue showcasing beautiful villages, towns, and cities across the continent of Africa. We are planning to visit and document all the small towns in the 210 constituencies across the country. And currently we are in Kabete constituency. We are finishing up. And so if you are a fan of the interior Kenya, please subscribe to this channel so that we can visit everywhere together. Now back to the video. And as you can see, already we are in the town, which is not very far from the nation capital, Nairobi. In fact, it is only 20 kilometers. And it is also 8 kilometers from Kichiku town, which I did cover sometime last year. You can go and check the video. It is on this channel. The famous food market is on my right. It is right behind these structures selling clothes, where you can get anything from groceries to cereals, especially on market days, which are on Thursdays and Saturdays every week, but I'm not so sure about it. But let me first show you the eggs market, which is one of a kind in the region. In fact, eggs comes from as far as Uganda, which is a neighboring country. Although the place is a bit chaotic to maneuver, cars are parked everywhere, although most of them belongs to eggs traders, especially on the other side, who sell eggs from their trunks. But I just want you to have a glance and see what happens here. In fact, there is nothing else that is sold in this building. You can get eggs for all prices, whether on wholesale or retail. In fact, if you are in the egg dealing business, this is the place to be. You can buy them or sell them in large quantities. And the prices are a bit lower than in other parts of the country, especially around the city. But anyway, don't ever say I didn't plug you. The journey continues. And I'm told the town got its name from its founder, who went by the name Wangige, who lived not very long time ago, maybe in the 18th or early 19th century. I'm not so sure. His history is not written anywhere. In fact, it is only passed through generations. You can only get it from the locals, which is the case for most Africans. We need to start writing our beautiful history. And I'm told members of his clan still dominate the small town. In fact, there's a small monument marking his tomb near the eggs market. And this is not your regular small town as far as numbers are concerned, as it has a population of 2,500 people. 16,000 are men, while 16,490 are women. You can see the gender gap is somehow small. Well, it seems like there is someone for everyone. In fact, the difference is only about 400, which is in favor of women. And I know this is not good news for my polygamous battalion, who always get excited after learning that a town has more women. I always read your comments. In terms of population density, well, there are 4,020 people per square kilometer, which is expected as this is a town. There is also an average of 3 people per household, meaning that people are not having a lot of children. In fact, the average was 2.8. I just rounded off, which means that if a house has a husband and a wife, they are more likely to have one child. And in the case of a single parent, they have a maximum of 2 children. I don't know why the birth rate is that low, but it is common knowledge that urban centers are not conducive for having many kids, as life in towns can be somehow hectic, especially when it comes to feeding a lot of mouths and finding good shelters for your children. And as you can see, I'm back to the Western Bypass, which cuts the town into two. But let me take you to the town hospital and see what's up. Alright everyone, we are just a few meters from the town center, and I want to explore a few social amenities in this small town. And I want to start with the hospital, which will be hitting in a second. And remember, this is not a small hospital. In fact, it is a level 4 facility, meaning that it has both inpatient and outpatient services. It is a public hospital, meaning that it is run by the Kiambu County government. And I'm reminded doctors are on strike countrywide. But I hope this facility is running since there are other professionals in the medical fraternity. Well, from where I sit, the facility is very clean. I hope you can see that. It is the first impression. And I hope the same is reflected in the inside. That was the old wing, which has been existing for more than 5 decades. And I want to show you the new facility, which is not more than 5 years old. You can see it right ahead. It's a new 3-story building, and it seems like the government is heavily investing in healthcare in this area, which is quite commendable, as urban population is vulnerable to healthcare problems, especially when compared to the rural population. In fact, I'm told that most of these healthcare facilities in Kiambu County are forced to serve more than their capacity, as patients come from as far as Machakos and Nairobi counties, which are just neighbors. And also don't forget that Kiambu has one of the highest population in the country. And remember, this is Kabete Constituency, which was carved from the famous Kikuyu Constituency in 2010. And once upon a time, one Paul Moite was the area member of parliament. He's a popular city lawyer. I know most old-timers remembers him. And recently there was another one who goes by the name Ferdinand Waitito, aka Baba Yao, which is Swahili for their father, a very egoistic name for those who don't understand Kiswahili. He is a very controversial politician in the country, and yet very popular. And so I hope you get a glimpse of what Kabete is politically. And I want to give you a few demographic numbers about the constituency as I head back to the town to explore more facilities. The town is on the right, but if I decide to go on the left, I'll be heading to Nairobi. In fact, Kichiku Estate, one of the leafy suburbs in the country, is only less than 2 kilometers from here. But that's a story for another day. In fact, I'll be going that way later in the video to visit our second town. But let me first give you the constituency's demographic, as I promised. And Kabete has a population of 199,653 people, which is only 400 shy of 200,000 people. And that population is quite huge. In fact, it is one of the most populous constituencies, as it is part of the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. It has a population density of 3,289 people per square kilometer, meaning the entire constituency is basically urban. Remember, the small town of Wangige had a population density of 4,020 people per square kilometer. And so the small town is just a reflection of the entire constituency. And the annual population change is estimated as 3.6% per year, meaning that the population density continues to increase. In fact, in 2009, the constituency had a population of 140,000 people, meaning it increased by more than 60,000 in 2019, that is in 10 years. And this is mostly due to rural-urban migration, as most people moving to Nairobi from rural areas are choosing to stay here as they work in the city. As life is quite affordable here, it is also easy to commute to the city on a daily basis. In fact, the public transport vehicles charges about 70 Kenya shillings to get you to the city, which is less than a US dollar. There is another social facility that I want to visit here, which is Wangige Primary School, which is also just a few meters from the town center. It serves the huge Wangige's population. In fact, it is one of the biggest primary schools in the country, with more than 4,000 students. It seems that there is a function that is underway as schools across the country are closed. It is the April holiday, although they should be opening, but the government has extended the holiday due to the heavy rains and floods experienced across the country. And I don't know when you are watching this video, but it is on 4th May 2024 at around 12 p.m. A very beautiful day. The sun is out, which is a miracle, as the country is experiencing heavy rains. You can also see Wangige's town's building right in front. I told you the school is not far away from the town center. In fact, that perimeter wall is separating the school from the western bypass. I'm just giving you a glimpse of the area's geography so that you can know where we are. And right opposite the primary school gate, there is a secondary school, which we are facing right now. You can see the tall story building. And as I can read, it is one Wangige High School. And it seems like a decent school from a distance. Well, let's meet in our next town. Well, everyone, I'm just a kilometer away from Wangige town, and I'm approaching a small town which goes by the name Kibichiku. It is more of a shopping center in a rural village, but has a very rich history, which I'll be telling you shortly as we drive around. And please note the small road has cabro, which is not common in this part of the country. And I want to show you something before I proceed. Let me turn right a little bit. And you can see the tall trees on my left. Inside that fence, there's a very old coffee estate, which also extends on the other side of the road. You can see similar tall trees on my extreme right. There are thousands of acres, which belongs to one Charles Jonjo. He was a very important figure in Kenya's history. In fact, he was the first black attorney general for the country after Kenya gained independence in 1963 from the British. The guy was born right here in this village, and he is a breaker of various records. And one example is the fact that he married at the age of 51, which is quite rare in Africa, a move that was held by most senior bachelors, who deemed him as a role model for long. He was also the second African to be admitted to the bar as a lawyer in Kenya. He is only second to one Agri Kodhek. And I'm told that since Charles Jonjo was the son of a senior chief in the colonial government, he was given the privilege of studying in England under the colonial government scholarship. But the catch was, although his interest was in studying law, Africans were not allowed to study the course for reasons only known to the colonial masters, and he was supposed to study a course in public administration, as the colonial government hoped that someday he would replace his father as a senior chief in the Eastern African colony, who was actually a collaborator. Well, after completing his first degree, he refused to come back to the country and secretly enrolled to a law course. And soon after the government learned about his scheme and his pocket money was cut short, he also lost his accommodation, which was provided for by the colonial master, and he has to survive on his own. Another interesting fact about Charles Jonjo is that he was quite interested in British culture, and it seems like his long stay in London had a heavy spell on him, as story goes that he considered himself more of a British than an African, and he fondly referred to himself as the Duke of Kabete Shire. You can see how he corrupted the name Kabete, which is a local name, to sound more British by adding Shire. Such a cunning guy. He also married a white woman and had 3 kids, but unfortunately he died in 2022, aged 102. Well, such a long life, a blessed life indeed. There are also other legends that comes from this village. I told you that this is not your regular village. And one of these legends is one Lois Kim. She is a sensational gospel artist who mostly sings in her local dialect, which is Kikuyu language. She has more than 100 songs, and she rose to prominence in the late 2000s. I'm also reminded that she is a politician. In fact, she vied for the Kiambu Women Representative seat in 2022, coming a distant third. And I happened to cast my vote somewhere in this county in that particular elections as I was around. And I remember my brother and I agreeing to vote for her just for her beauty. I know you think we stooped too low, but is there any other quality to look for when electing a woman representative in this country? What do they do anyway? Well, let me leave that topic at that before some of you start casting stones on Mr. Lone Traveler. He got enough troubles. Bottom line, she is quite talented musician, and that reminds me that there is another musician that comes from this area, and his name is Warecho, who, unlike Lois Kim, he is not a gospel artist, he's a secular one, and he is an old-timer. Most of you who are around in the 80s and 90s can remember him. And also in the early 2000s, that was the time he was much active. Let me leave that segment at that. But if you know other legends from Wangige and Kibichiku area, you can add their names on the comment section below, just for fun. And as you can see, I'm diverting from the main road once more, and I want to see more of this town. And although it is very small, it is very interesting. I like it, as it is quite clean. I also like the village ambience, which has become very rare these days, as urbanization is catching up in almost everywhere. It is also good to know that Kibichiku is part of the larger Wangige area. In fact, they belong to the same sublocation called Kibichiku and the same location that goes by the name Wangige. And so there is no separate data, but I can continue to give you more of the constituencies data, which I found more interesting. And to start with, let me start with the overall gender distribution, where 51% are women and 49% are men. The number of intersex are only 14, which is a bit low, especially when compared to the neighboring constituencies such as Kiamba. Age distribution is also quite fascinating, as out of the almost 200,000 people, those aged 65 and above are only 7,000, which actually I did a round off. The actual number is 6,942. I don't know where are the elderly in this community. And it also seems like the number of old people continue to decrease as you go up, which is natural, but this number is too low. For instance, those aged 90 and above are only 316. You can imagine out of almost 200,000 people, only 316 are aged 90. And for those aged between 80 and 89, there are 1,141 people. It is also good to know that the constituency, that is Kabete, has one of the highest educated population, as almost 13,000 people have university degrees. That is according to the Kenyan Bureau of Statistics, which also ranks Kiambu County high, as 138,861 people have university degrees in the county, where almost 77K were men, while only 61,000 were women. Well, let me leave this video at that as I head back toward Wangige town. And thank you so much for watching this far. If you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly consider doing so, as that is one of the major ways that you can support us. Like the video so that it can be recommended to as many people as possible, and smash the notification bell so that every time we post, you'll be among the first few people to be notified. Also, special thanks to Team Village to Town TV, which is growing in crazy numbers. Kindly keep the conversation going. Tell us what do you think about Wangige. Will you consider living there? Thank you.